this question about realism. So I was reading a book about serving a cause greater than oneself. That was the other day. Some people think maybe serving a cause greater than oneself means dying for one's country. Some people think it is through the medical profession, being a teacher, a social worker, even a janitor, or a housewife. Now, Duane, you are serving a cause greater than yourself. And from the pinnacle of the real universes, you can see what it means serving a cause greater than oneself. So can you expatiate some more on this idea of serving a cause greater than oneself?
Okay, again, we're dealing with the old ideas of serving, just like in the corporation. Paul used the idea co-worker with God. Does that sound good? Do you want to keep being a co-worker? So all of a sudden you're in the new presentation here. You realize you're free being of real light. You're on your way to realizing and recognizing that. So, and the idea of serving, okay, yes, there is that aspect that takes place. But also when you look at the world, people get caught up in that idea too, thinking that it's something that it's really not. So again, let's say, okay, you have the mothers and the children, you have the nurses, you have Mother Teresa, you have Gandhi, you have all these things, you have Jesus, we can just go really way far back, okay, you have all these things accordingly, and it's brought into the idea of serving, okay, and in a way it is that. But realistically, that is just part of it. It's not the whole picture, to where the society becomes so passive that it expects to be served. You see, this is where people come up when I first started this, etc. And of course they refer to it as a spiritual thing, and thinking that, oh, it should all be free. All right. So again, they don't really see past, I have to pay the rent. I'm on this earth too. I have to, society has built itself a certain way and I've become part of that. So, again, everybody has their ideas that this should be this or whatever. Well, the reality life is already free, and that's a recognizable position. But while you're in creation, whatever particular is going on is such. And so, yes, there is the serving idea, like a waiter or a waitress in a restaurant. Yes, but they don't do that 24 hours a day, do they? But when it comes to, I like to see this with the real guides, it's really not about serving. It's really about the adventure of becoming more aware. That's the best part. And what they're doing is simply sharing. I like that idea better than being a co-worker, a slave, or a subject, like the Queen likes to call people. You are my subjects, etc. Oh, that sounds good. Oh, we're a subject of the Queen. Oh, that's so cool. She sees us and she likes us. No, she really doesn't. She just says that in a particular way, but she's really telling you what it's all about. So when I look at these old ideas, again, I'm rewriting history. I like supporting, supporting something real, a real purpose. I like that. And sharing, okay? In the beginning, when I first created the new presentation website, I didn't proclaim myself as anything. I just simply said I am sharing my real experiences with Rebazar and the real guys. That's really was what I started off with. And that's what I see. And this is the best part. And that is, it's a subtle position. People want freedom. Well, you need to recognize real freedom, and that is that nobody serves anybody. All right? The sun shines, but it's not serving anybody. It's sharing its light is what it's doing. And then each one of us decides to be whatever we decide to be. That's a better part. See, there's your freedom. Your freedom is not in being served or serving. No, because then people are slaves to each other. That is so. But simply being real in what makes sense. I like making sense better. So again, we're redefining these old ways and ideas. And most people, when you look at what they're into, you look at the nurses and Mother Teresa and all these things, it's self-restricting and binding. You just grow old and you still stay unaware of the all is. Well, what a bummer, you know? Again, so where does serving go? But, you know, we may do that from time to time. We may bring somebody something or whatever. We support each other. And when I talk about support, and that is that we stand real with what we're presenting and have fun with it. Yeah, that becomes the difference. Like, yes. So go ahead, Charles. There's an idea of that.
Okay, then you've just talked about being real. And you often say this, we are real. Well, if someone asks how real the wonderful worldwide educators are, so how would one reply? I ask this question because we say we are real. When we say we are real, we immediately send a message that others are unreal or unnatural. So what makes us real? The understanding, the perception, and the recognition of ourselves as free beings of light and walking from the universal position? Or is it pointing out the machinations of the authoritarians, or recognizing creation for what it is? How is our real beingness? How can our real beingness be understood, Duane?
With everything, you might say there's endless variables. It's not just literal, black and white. Okay, this is what the world kind of wants. They just want. It's like, well, what is the answer to life? Well, blah blah blah. That's it. Oh, okay. Now I got the answer to life. Now I can just get back to my personal life and do whatever. Well, that's fine. When I say real, okay. And actually, I've redone the word. It's capital R and then a little e and then capital A-L-L. Real. Okay. The all idea came into this after the is idea in 2007. So, and it makes sense because it includes all. But when I'm referring to the okay, let's be real or etc. It is simply making sense of where we're at. That's all. Just, it's like, get real. Just makes, what we're really saying is, hey, just make sense of the situation. Does it make sense to, blow up other people so that we can control the world? This is the view of the U.S. government. It's like, get real. Does this make sense? You don't need to do that, but they've decided to do it, so you might say in a way that makes sense to them because they're afraid. So, there is, in a way, there's really no way to pinpoint things down. We do the best we can because this is how life is. It's like the air we breathe. It goes into everything, It goes into every little crack or whatever, through your walls, through wherever. It's everywhere. Life is everywhere. And the reality of life is that according to creation and how we are in creation, there's endless possibilities. There's no end to it. So to try to pin something down saying, oh, it's this or that, it is one moment, and then the next moment, it's something else. That would be like saying, well, when the Wright brothers invented the airplane they did, that's it. That's the ultimate. But you can see that it wasn't, because there's endless possibilities with it. So when I say something real, that's the best reference that I can use, but then I break it down. But I really like the idea of just simply make sense of the situation. Does that make sense? Does it make sense to put fluoridation in the water when we don't need it? You see, there's the comparison to write about. So, yeah, it takes a lot of definition, and just like the Skypes, this is why I suggest coming into the Skypes and even starting one, because you'll learn a lot. But at the same time, what you've come through, you know, that was for that time. And so now, how is it that you are going to relate to the new nowness that life is? Because life is always now. I just use these ideas as a reference. And this becomes the fun part. So this becomes the challenge, and you make your own adventure with it. That's that part. See, in creation, we have the adventure of things, you know, just like we see in the movies and whatever. But now we have something real to relate to that is pure of heart, you might say. But in the real universe, is when you recognize this, it is like that, but it's not the same, because it's a recognition of isness. It's so cool how it is. It's much better. But again, many people will choose the body worlds and creation, which is fine. It's all choice. All of us have that choice. We're just presenting something. So, you know, it's just when I was experiencing this, the best ideas that I could come up with were real guidance, real whatever, real education. And so nobody else uses them. And so then I define it. What is real education? Well, it's a reference to the true reality life is, and not just standard indoctrinated education. So you see the two. And so again, but you have to explore to be able to see that. It's like, you know, it's like Columbus going across the sea. Until he gets there and finds whatever, you know, all he can do is kind of assume something or imagine. That's it. But then when he gets there, he finds out, wow, there is something else. And so again, as we explore this, and we start off with the new you and the dream visions and whatever, that's a start to get to some point of the real side. Then eventually the individual starts discovering something and has a comparison to the physical part. It doesn't X out, or it doesn't negate anything in creation. It's just that, you know, it's kind of like the clothes you wear. You decide when you're going to wash your shirt. Okay, you can wear it for years, or all of a sudden one day you realize, you know what? Oh, okay, I want to get real with this. I want to wash my shirt. So that makes sense. See, so again, you're getting real with it. And so there's many references to this. This is the fun part. And being able to, you know, create these references that make sense. Yeah, and I like that. I like the challenge, because I'm always seeing more with the isness and how it comes out and what I'm relating to, etc. And the groups and Facebook give me a good opportunity to create all these variables, these little ideas that, you know, millions of people can see. And that's the point, but I'm moving towards the projects to give a better demonstration of what's going on, and this will be reflected also on the real side now that people know how to get to that part. So this is where it becomes even more real, which is more fun. But again, it's up to the individual. Only the risk takers will see this. Everybody else, again, most people will want to stick with their old routines and just grow old again, thinking that, oh, this is just something to do. It's a cute idea. But no, until you totally step into it, like being the sun shining, you know, you've got all these restrictions. So you decide, you know, how much of this you really, how real you want to be. And again, life is far too real. You will never be able to understand the isness of life. No way. And that's the best part, because it's so awesomely far too real that it bothers the personal self. So, yeah, first of all, the reality is that just simply learning to make sense of where you're at right here instead of all these cute ideas that you've brought from all the other spiritual paths and understanding in your education or whatever. These things are fine, but these things are just created ideas in this one-dimensional world. That's as far as they go. So hanging on to them and carrying them, bringing them around and discussing them all the time, when you could actually learn to see into the real universes and bring something that really relates to the isness, I see that makes more sense. That becomes more real, again, but it's choice. We have to respect the choice of others. We are not barbarians here. We have to deal with the barbarians, the global wardens who control the prison planet here. But it's okay. It's okay. It's part of the wake up. So who will take on the challenge, or just going to kind of go back to their little personal world and wait for all the effects to show up and then have to deal with them and wonder what to do? It's a choice, isn't it? So it's time to get real or don't. Yes, go ahead, Charles.
Thank you. When one reads your writings, or let me call it your references, you will see that you are a realist, or you are a naturalist. And this is because you don't bring in some kind of, you don't follow the conventions or other implausible, exotic, and supernatural elements into your work. You tell it as it is, without any of those kind of superfluous embellishments and all the like that go with popular writing. Yet reading the Adventure Is series leads one to the conclusion that you are exotic and supernatural. So what can you say about this this blend of realism and the supernatural, or the exotic?
What is your idea of supernatural and exotic? Is that a place you've been, Charles?
No.
I don't know. I didn't see that on the brochure, but can you explain it?
Yeah, from the lay point of view, when a lay person reads the books, you say, "Oh, this guy is some kind of supernatural person. These things is relating to what he's saying, and not within the realm of his imagination, or something like that. It's not like it's too far out there, and probably he should be some kind of person out of the ordinary, out of the natural, to talk about this kind of experiences on the real side with such details and all the like. It is sort of supernatural to others. That's what I mean. Because, well, from the realist point of view, you tell it, you chronicle life as it is now. You give what you give an idea of what the true reality of life really is and what people should pursue in life. Yes, that is fine. Yes, but then there is this far out aspect of the work which is, will I say scary? Uh-huh. So that is where the supernatural idea comes from. That is exotic and supernatural. So how can you address this, will I say, charge or criticism of your work?
I know that you've taken time during the week, and it's wonderful, Charles, because again, people got to know. So it would seem so. So as I was listening to you, and as you were referring to what people might think or see or whatever, and of course it's like, oh, this person has a very vivid imagination and all this. And so, yes, it's along the lines of like the superhero, supernatural or whatever, okay, all natural or unnatural, or we have all these terms. And exotic is more along the lines of what I use as, amazing romantic adventures, because again, it's the reality of life is really becomes a very real romance in its own way. So we have the exotic, which is kind of different things or whatever. What I put down here, and that is that if I was simply just using my imagination to create these books, I would have written Star Wars and Gone with the Wind. Okay, so again, you might say those are something out of someone's imagination, but what I've written is what I see and perceive from the reality life is. There becomes a difference. So yes, the imagination and the five bodies do come into it, but the real focus is my real awareness. This becomes the difference. So for most people, they relate to imagination and fantasy, etc. And this is where, we have what we have. Look at the movies today. They're basically, so many of them are just combat and whatever. And so this is where the imagination of things is gone, or their personal comedies or whatever that deal with boy meets girl and this and that, etc. Again, just things that are taking place on the earth alone. And this is where people use their imagination and their mind to put things together accordingly. And, the imagination is always available, but when it comes to your real awareness, this is the best part, to see how to put something together that makes sense with being a reference to the true reality life is, and at the same time going through the adventure of the personal self, which is the five bodies, the five created bodies. So again, most people aren't aware of that because they've been indoctrinated to be one-dimensional, that you are just the personal self, the human self, and people are thinking, and oh no, we're three-dimensional or whatever, but no, really, this is just black and white here. It's one-dimensional, and you can think that you're in a three-dimensional world, but it doesn't change the fact of how restricted you are by how you've been taught and how you agree to that. So yeah, so when the supernatural comes in, I don't really use that idea because it really references a lot of the manipulated magic that people do. And I've used the word magic a few times in the past and confronted with that, and I took it out because I was really seeing something else, but I was using that word, then I took it out because I don't use that word anymore, because it does refer to certain things that I am not referring to. So again, your question about that, it would seem to be that supernatural and erotic and all these things, exotic, erotic, whatever it is. But it's really not that. It's a more finer tuned, recognition and perceiving of what this reality is. This becomes the real adventure and creation, etc. for us. And there's so much I can say about it. But anyhow, that's the idea. Again, I'm giving you a comparison here. Try to give many comparisons to what has taken place, what we've been through, what has been created and what is really being looked at now, what is being presented now. And so again, by the very fact that I've defined what I present, say, and present as a reference, now I would assume that people would understand, oh, it's just a reference, it's not an absolute. You see? There's a hint there too. It's not the absolute. So when people say, oh, you know, God is all, they've taken that idea, because it's just an idea, and they've decided that it is an absolute. So they've created a self-restriction around the idea of a God, which they have no idea what it is, because it's so simple, and that is they don't recognize what they're relating to, you see? So if they did recognize who this God refers to, they'd be surprised, because it's Kalam God, and it is reptilian. But they don't recognize that, so what they do is they cater to the idea, the sound good idea, making that idea an absolute, which they add more ideas to, and then they just stay self-restricted, and then the reptilians come in and tap line the heck out of them. So this is what Joni's doing too. Again, the people in the corporation, they cannot see she's reptilian. She's controlling the whole thing. Where is their awareness? It's all in an idea about God, and now it's worshiping, the ideas of worshiping and prayer. These are just ideas. So what I'm presenting, you see, is not along the lines of that supernatural stuff, because that really is supernatural stuff. We're making sense. So again, yeah, I see that, you know, what we are presenting is a really good reference to the true reality, but discovering the true reality is up to each individual, and how they will come around and bring it through to where it's your whole life, to where you be this reality. You see? That's what is being presented here. So again, but that's huge. It may take 1,000 or 1,000,000 years, time-wise, but what's the rush? You got somewhere to go. So again, yeah, that's I'm just giving a comparison again, and you know, each person can decide. You want to play around with this stuff, fine. But this is the realm of imagination. Supernatural is the realm of imagination and fantasy, which is fine. We need that outlet. There's an aspect there, and to also bring it around as a reference in a particular way to the true reality, because until the individual can really experience, recognize, and perceive this, it is like a fantasy to them. So this is where Paul, in the beginning, gave the imaginative technique. You are to imagine something. See, that's the first process. You are to imagine yourself out of your body, etc. So again, yes, it does imply, but you might say we're past that, but you will still use these things, because now it's an isness. It's a recognition. It's not utilizing the faculties so much, but more so your real awareness, until you don't need the bodies at all. You are pure being with your real awareness, and you see and perceive everything. That's so cool, isn't it? Go ahead, Charles.
Yeah, Duane. Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to point out that you are a realist, because you espouse this realism or naturalism in the most direct manner. And this, in the literary domain, being a realist is generally the attempt to represent subject matter truthfully, without artificiality, and avoiding some artistic conventions, yes. And where it begins to go to stray a little is in the nature of the real side experiences. You know, they are really you may think that the new books are just easy to digest. Some people would maybe throw it aside, say, no, I can't read this stuff. Who is this guy? He's talking about some things in different worlds and all the like. Very soon one will sleep and have some terrible dreams. You see, you might just think in that light. So, but the realist part of you is there, presenting the true reality of life in a truthful manner, without artificiality, and avoiding all the artistic conventions and all the like, going straight to the heart of the matter. That is it.